Let me tell you a quick story. It's the bottom of the fourth inning. Bases are loaded. There's two outs. You're playing shortstop. The ball gets hit to you. It's a chopper. Not too fast, not too slow. It's the one that you fielded 1,000 times in practice. But this time, you rush it. You come up a little too early, and the ball rolls right under your glove and into the outfield. 2 runs score. You hear the crowd, you hear the coach, you hear everything. But the loudest voice is inside your head. I can't believe I messed that up. God, everyone saw that. Oh, coach is never going to trust me again. Now you're still out there, but you're not really out there. You're stuck. You're stuck in that last play in your head, and you keep replaying it over and over and over again. And the very next batter hits a grounder your way again, but you're frozen. You're late to react. You make another error. Another run scores. Now you're really spiraling. Does that sound familiar? Maybe not exactly, but does that feeling hit home? That moment when one mistake turns into two because you're trapped in your own thoughts? Because you're so busy beating yourself up that you're no longer in the game? Well, that's what this lesson is all about. Every great player has that moment. What makes them great is what they do after that mistake. That's what I want to teach you today. Something to help you bounce back faster and stay focused and respond like the gritty player you already are becoming. It's called the gritty method, and it's your playbook for playing one pitch at a time. So let's break it down. Welcome to camp. I'm Valerie Alston. I'm a mental skills coach and resilience expert. And today, as I mentioned, I'm going to teach you about how to be gritty, okay, which is essentially the process for bouncing back after you make a mistake. Now, the story that I told you, does that ring a bell? Have you had a moment where you felt like that before? Really, what's going on here is that you're letting your thoughts get in the way of being successful. So we talked about the mind-body connection in the last video. Just to recap, you have an event that happens. Okay, so in this case, a mistake, letting the chopper go through your legs. And the way you choose to interpret that mistake is going to dictate whether you have the ability to bounce back or whether you get stuck in your head and keep making more mistakes. All right, so we're going to build on this same principle. Now, let me show you how to do that. So the core steps here for being gritty is G, to get your mind right. So make sure that you reinterpret failure in a successful, productive way. R is reflect and review. And what we're talking about here is helping you learn from that moment and recognize every mistake is an opportunity to learn. In it now is all about getting your focus back on where it needs to be, so what's most important, and then being able to take action so that you get back in the game or back into practice or back in the drill that you're working on. And finally, Y is you own your response. So you have to take ownership. The way you act after a mistake is on you. Okay. And you do have control over that. And it's something that you can influence. And if you learn how to do it the right way, you're going to start to discover how to get back quickly after a mistake. Okay. So let's dive into these much more fully. Let's talk about G, getting your mind right. The key here is to understand that failure is feedback. It's not final. And you need to understand that you are a youth athlete, okay? Even pros who get paid millions of dollars, or if you just finished watching the Women's College World Series for all those elite college players, they still make mistakes. Errors still happen. And they're way further along in their progression than you. So what that means is that failure is normal. It is a natural part of the learning process. And so you don't want to judge yourself just because you made a mistake. You are not a bad player because you've made mistakes. What we really want to train you to do is think about a fail moment as your first attempt in learning, okay? First attempt in learning. In fact, you probably will not get much better unless you're pushing yourself and making mistakes. Because we talked about last video, that growth mindset is that you have to be able to get out of your comfort zone. And out of your comfort zone, you're going to start to make mistakes, and that's okay. But that's how you learn, that's how you develop skill, that's how you figure out what tools and techniques need more work. Reminder that you are a learner, not a loser. All right. So here's your tactic. You have to figure out a reinterpret phrase that helps you remember that when a mistake happens, an error in a game, some sort of mistake that you make while you're training or at camp, any of that, you are still learning. You're still growing. A mistake is simply an opportunity to learn. And so something like, I'm still learning, maybe one pitch at a time, or hey, this is feedback, some sort of phrase that reminds your brain that it's okay and this is a learning opportunity. So that's the first thing. Get your mind right. Then once you've got your mind right, you have to reflect. You've got to take some time to review and reflect on, what did I actually learn? A mistake doesn't inherently help you learn unless you take time to think about it. Every mistake is a message, and you just want to make sure you're listening to it. Now, the way you do this might look a little bit different if you're in the middle of a game versus you're at practice or you're at camp and you've got a little more time in between. But essentially, what you're trying to do is regain that emotional control by being curious. Now, it is normal and natural to be disappointed or frustrated or mad after you make a mistake. Nobody actually wants to make a mistake. That's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It doesn't feel good. Okay. But whatever you're feeling, again, is important because that's going to create some motivation for you to change. But you will never change, you will never grow if you don't think about what happened. Okay? So you want to ask yourself a reflection question. What did I learn? And there's some 4 general categories that you want to think about when you've made a mistake. It probably won't be in all 4, but this gives you some area to focus on. So you want to think about, was this a skill that I didn't execute properly? If this chopper that we talked about in the story was like a backhand, and did I just not get low enough to get my backhand or go through the ball? Was it effort? Did I not try? Did I not give my full effort? Or did I, right? Was my focus in the right place? Was I looking at the ball or was I watching the runner run down the first baseline? Was it a strategy? Maybe I chose to wait for the second bounce instead of running up and catching it after the first hop. Right, whatever it is, those are some general categories to think about because if it was skill, I know where I can do my work. Right? If it was effort, I know what I can change. If it was focus, I know what to change. And if it was strategy, I know what to change. So this gives you a framework to think about where to start focusing on your solutions. What type of error was it? What type of mistake was it? And what that does is it helps you shift out of those emotions and gain some distance so that you can be more objective about what happened. So you want to shift your brain from feeling ashamed to feeling like solution focused. So the tactic is simply to ask yourself, hey, what happened? And what did I learn? That what happened is more about which strategy, was it skill, effort, focus, strategy? What did I learn is the change you want to make, right? What got in the way? Okay, so that's the first part. You have to learn from that experience through reflection. Now, the next part is we have to recognize that right now we're still in our head. That reflection process is still internal. And unfortunately, the game is still being played. Or when you're at camp, the drills are still being run, right? Stuff doesn't necessarily stop. Unless, of course, it's between innings and you're going to the dugout, right? There are some natural pauses in the game of softball. However, we need to make sure that we're getting our focus back outward into the game or the drill. So, in it now is our step I, in it now. What's important now? We're moving our focus from internal back outward. That last play is over. Are you? Right? We don't want you stuck up in your head. This is where you're going to start to take your focus off of the mistake and the reflection process, and you're getting back out into the game and onto the field. So in games, this is quicker because you don't have as much time. So you might use the acronym WIN. What's important now? To reset. So if you were that shortstop that made the mistake, what's important now? Next pitch, right? Another ball is going to be coming to me. I have to flush what happened. Now, if you're in practice, you might have a little bit more time to digest what happened, maybe talk to coach, talk to your camp instructors, but you still want to focus on what's next. You don't want to stay stuck in your head. And so this is your chance to build a mini plan for improvement. You want to build that reset button of getting back into the field, back on the game. So the tactic is really just build your I'm back routine, right? To be back in it. So you could use some sort of phrase like, hey, next ball, reset, I'm in it. Okay, you could use some sort of physical action to help you come back to the present moment. So brushing the dirt with your cleats, snapping your glove, stomping your cleats. Maybe if you're at the plate, you're looking at the barrel and you're doing twisting the bat in your hands. Something like that, right? It's a physical cue that's like reset, get back into the game. Another option is to look around you and ask yourself things like, where are the runners? What's my job? What's one thing I can lock into right now? And again, so all of these are prompts that will help you refocus back out into the playing field so that you're not stuck up in your head. Now, the next thing that you got to do is that was the act of shifting your focus, but now you got to do something. So T is take action. You got to try again. And you want to do that with intention. So specifically, if you're at practice or camp, you want to do that drill again, or whatever it is that you're doing where the mistake happened, you want to try it again. Okay? Because that's action builds confidence. And you start to see, okay, I've learned from that mistake, and you immediately get to apply what you've learned. It helps solidify this idea of I'm getting better. Remember growth mindset? So action creates confidence. Get back in there. You don't have to be perfect, and you never will be. You just have to try again and do it with purposeful intent. So build that mental toughness by choosing effort after a mistake. So you're going to purposely try again. If it's a game setting, you're going to reset and you're going to start thinking about, I want the ball to come to me, like expecting it, because the softball gods will find you. If you don't want the ball, you know that ball's coming right to you. I can tell you numerous times about my career where that happened. The goal here of take action is just make that next step, right? Do something deliberately to move on. Celebrate that next attempt if it's a practice opportunity, or if you're in a game, just go back to that next play. One pitch at a time, next play. Okay? Now, grit is the steps that you need to take. Why, the E, the grit E, is understanding that you have to own this process. You have to own your response, that you don't control the result. So you can't control the fact that a mistake happened, but you absolutely can control your response. And so this is the overall mindset that you're taking, is that you control what happens next. You are in control of your focus, of your motivation, and the way you bounce back is by taking ownership of, yep, that was on me, or maybe it was just a bad hop. You never know. Sometimes the field has a say, okay? So we don't want to blame teammates, we don't want to make excuses, we don't want to blame coach or the drill or anything. You choose your attitude, you choose your next move, and you choose the standard, right, to bounce back. So using the phrase gritty players don't wait, they respond can be helpful, right? Is don't wait for the game to happen to you, is use the grit process, own it, and move forward. Okay? So this is a recap here. What I want you to do, hopefully you have a notebook with you or some sort of something to take notes on and to write. We're going to take a few moments to create your actual gritty plan. Okay? So first and foremost, you got to get your mind right. So what's one phrase or something that you can tell yourself the next time you make a mistake to remind yourself that it's okay? All right? This is an opportunity to learn. So write that down. Then you're going to reflect and review. Now, depending on when you're watching this, what part of camp you're in, you might have already made mistakes. If you've made a mistake, think about that. What did I learn from that mistake? Okay. If you haven't made any mistakes yet, that's okay. But just know that you're going to have to reflect and review. So when it happens, what question do you want to ask yourself? Now, the in it now, this is that shifting from the internal focus back out into the present moment. And so, what I want you to really think about here is, what is your go-to refocus strategy? What's your phrase? What's your word? What are you going to say to yourself? What's maybe the physical thing, like snapping your glove or brushing your cleats or taking a breath? And then, what's your phrase of how will I refocus and get back onto the field? What's my job? What now? What's important? Okay. So you're just going to write that down. Take action. This is your opportunity to generally think about what's my next action. Okay. Obviously, this can get more specific if you have a specific mistake in mind, but I want you to think about I will show grit by doing what? Okay. What is your overall action that you're going to take? Getting back in line to start the drill again, taking a deep breath and getting back in the plate. Maybe you're scrimmaging and you're playing, and maybe you just struck out. Okay, I'm going to go and cheer for my teammates. Something that is a general strategy that you can apply in a lot of settings to get back into the game and taking action. And then for the own it piece, I want you to really think about right here, right now, why do you want to bounce back better this week? What are you trying to learn and grow? Who do you want to be as a player? What kind of identity do you have as a player? So that becomes your reason for wanting to bounce back. So you're going to complete the phrase, I'm being gritty because I want to be a player who, and you're looking for something like, is always in the play, whose teammates can rely on them to have their back, who can play at the next level. Something, right? Something that matters to you. So hopefully you're going to take some time with some camp counselors there to help give you some guidance. But your ultimate plan, what you're looking for here is your gritty plan for camp, right? When I make a mistake, I will, right? So we're simplifying this whole process and just what are you going to do to make sure that this week at camp for this weekend, you're bouncing back from those mistakes that you will inevitably make because you are a learning and developing young person. By the end of this lesson, I want you to have a plan and then practice it throughout the rest of camp. All right, y'all. I hope this helps you bounce back. There's going to be an award related to being the most gritty player at camp, and you get a free mental skills training session with me. How cool is that? So, anyway, have a great time at camp. Enjoy the people around you. Softball is an amazing game. Keep loving it, and I will see you next year.